Good morning, everyone. How are we doing today? Yay, I like Adrian's little excited woo. All right, well, anyways, my name is Ashley Newlin. If I haven't met you, I'm excited to get to meet you. There's some new faces here and some faces I already know. So let's go ahead and get started with our call to community. So we'll start with The Only Ones Who Ever Win by Aileen B. Carpelis. Out of our separate lives we come, to walk this path together for an hour or a day, for a week or a month, or a series of months and years. For this space and time we travel together, making much or little or nothing at all of the fact that another walks beside us. We can keep our eyes cast down, protecting ourselves from the pain we risk whenever we allow another human being to touch us. Living safe little lives inside our sterile wrappings. Or we can reach out, risking a little or a lot or every coin we have. Because we believe that loving and being loved is the only game in town. The choice is ours. Those who risk much lose much, but they are also the only ones who ever win. Oh, I think this part's mine too. Are we doing a song?
Intro the candles.
Oh, okay. My bad, y'all. Okay. So let's start with the candles. Please stand and embody your spirit for our chalice writing and spoken affirmation. We light this chalice, symbol of our purpose to bring more love and justice into the world. We light this chalice, knowing our congregation as a church dispersed across communities, not bound by walls, but connected through the web of life. And if you would join me for our spoken affirmation, love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is the great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth and freedom, and to help one another. All right, you may be seated. All right. So, for the opening thought today, I have a question. I was thinking the other day while I was driving to Walmart and getting lost because I wanted to take a different route. And I ended up in the middle of nowhere and couldn't find where I was at or what was around me. So I got on my phone and turned on my GPS. And a thought just came across me that we are living in a world dominated by technology. Now, I think that's a great thing. I love technology and I love the ability to get on my phone and get on the GPS and find wherever I'm going. But as I look deeper and deeper into this, I kind of realized that, is that always a great thing? Have we forgotten how to talk to each other? Have we replaced talking to your neighbor with likes and blocking on Facebook? Have we forgot how to ask for directions from our neighbors? Because in the past, when I'm lost in some random community, I would stop at a gas station and be like, hey, you know where I'm at? Can you help me find such and such? We have GPS. We have Facebook. We have the ability to talk to each other, anybody around the world. But have we forgotten how to talk to each other, how to love each other, how to ask for directions? Are we still lost despite all of this?
is our God. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. Sometimes we build a barrier to keep love tightly bound, corrupted by fear, unwilling to hear, denying the beauty we found. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. A bright new day is dawning, when love will not divide. Reflections of grace in every embrace, fulfilling the vision divine. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together as hearts beat as one. Emboldened by faith, we dare to proclaim we are answering the call of love. We are answering the call of love.
It's my turn. Okay, so in honor of our Silver Jubilee this year, I've been asked to talk about the history of the Earth Day Festival. We started in 2008, or 2006, 2007, Marla and I were helping a man from Dallas who was director of an interfaith environmental organization, and he was trying to expand up into the Texoma area. And he was meeting, he was working with different denominations in the Dallas area that were interested in environmental issues. And so we started meeting with members of Covenant Presbyterian Church and Grand Avenue Presbyterian Church and CORE in Fannin County, the Citizens Organizing for Resources and Environment. They're the people who were able to shut down the coal plants that were planned to expand into this area. So we were meeting with them. We started participating in Earth conferences that TCOG sponsored. And so the second Earth conference, the director of the environmental department at TCOG announced that that was going to be his last conference. He wasn't going to do anymore. So there were a group of us who thought, well, this can't stop. We need to there are people in this area that are interested in environment, and we need to continue. So we did kind of a practice Earth Day at church when we were over on Harrison Street. And we had about 100 people come. We had a workshop on insulation, and we had, Lynn did one on composting, and we set up a yard composting display over there. And we had another one, I can't remember what the other workshop was, but we had enough interest to encourage us. So I went and met with the tourism director in Sherman and the downtown Sherman director and told them, we want to start doing a regional Earth Day festival. So they suggested people to work with. So basically, we became kind of a host for a lot of different organizations doing parts for the festival. So we invited people to come and do children's activities, and we invited other organizations like the Master Gardeners and Master Naturalists to do workshops, and sold vendor spaces, tried to find vendors. We had a keynote speaker every year. So that's really how we got started, was just being involved with somebody else and then finding that it was going to stop and there was a need and we felt compelled that we needed to keep it going. And here we are 14 years later, still doing major recycling events and Earth Day events. But we're working with quite a few different organizations. It's not, we are the core organizers of it. We're basically the people who invite and beg people to work with us and do their part of it. So there you go.
Thank you, Amy. I think hearing about Earth Day Festival is just always wonderful for me, and it makes me so excited when I hear about it. So thank you for talking about that, and so excited for the Silver Jubilee. Congrats, y'all. So for our first reading, I grabbed it from John chapter 13, from the book of John chapter 13, verses 31 through 38, and it reads like this. When he had gone out, Jesus said, "Now the Son of Man has been glorified, and God has been glorified in him. If God has been glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and will glorify him at once. Little children, I am with you only a little longer. Will you look for me? And as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another, just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another." And then in verse 36, it says, Simon Peter said to him, "Lord, where are you going?" Jesus answered, "Where I am going, you cannot follow me now, but you will follow me afterwards." Peter said to him, "Lord, why can I not follow you now? I will lay down my life for you." Well, Jesus answered, "Will you lay down your life for me? Very truly, I tell you, before the cock crows, you have denied me 3 times.
Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot speak before thousands, you can give from deep within you. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace has tried us, hope inside us will lead the way on the road from greed to giving. Love will guide us through the hard night.
All right. Just take a moment real quick. If you're comfortable with it, feel free to close your eyes. Take a deep breath, counting to 4. And breathe out, doing the same. Let us make this heaven and earth a heaven, right here, right now. Who knows what existence's death will bring? Let us create a heaven here on earth, where love and truth and justice reign. Let us welcome all at our pearly gates, our freedom table. Let us, amid singing and great rejoicing, black, white, yellow, red, and all of our lovely colors, straight, gay, transgender, bisexual, and all the ways of loving each other's bodies. Blind, deaf, mute, healthy, sick, variously abled, young, old, fat, thin, gentle, cranky, joyous, sorrowing. Let no one feel excluded. Let no one feel alone. May the rich let loose their wealth to reign upon the poor. May the poor share their riches with those too used to money. May we come to venerate the earth, our mother, and tend her with wisdom and compassion. May we make our earth in Eden a paradise. May no one wish to leave her. May hate and warfare cease to clash in causes too old and tired to name: religion, nationalism, the false god of gold, deep-rooted ethnic hatreds. May all these disperse and wane. May we see each other's true selves. May we all dwell together in peace and joy and understanding. Let us make a heaven here on earth before it's too late. Let us make this earth a heaven for each other's sake.
Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me be part I seek. Let me be part of the love. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me all that I seek. Let me be part of the love. Open my heart to all that I seek. Let me all that I seek. Let me be part of the love you give.
Human's core function is love by Adrienne Marie Brown. When we are engaged in acts of love, we humans are at our best and most resilient. The love and romance that makes us want to be better people. The love of children that makes us change our whole lives to meet their needs. The love of family that makes us drop everything to take care of them. The love of community that makes us work tirelessly with broken hearts. Perhaps humans' core function is love, because love leads us to observe in a much deeper way than any other emotion. If love were the central practice of a new generation of organizers and spiritual leaders, it would have a massive impact. If the goal was to increase the love rather than winning or dominating a constant opponent, I think we could actually imagine liberation from constant oppression. We would suddenly be seeing everything we do, everyone we meet, not through the tactical eyes of war, but through the eyes of love. we would see that there is no such thing as a blank canvas, an empty land, or a new idea, but everywhere, we would understand that the strength of our movement is the strength of our relationships, which could only be measured by their depths. Scaling up would mean going deeper, being more vulnerable and more empathetic. Each of us, by our work here, contributes to a movement of love. May love hold and heal those who need to be healed. May love guide more and more people every day. Amen. That's gorgeous. All right. So we can, as we begin our discourse today, let me just kind of throw this out here. I'm a nerd, okay? So I know, like, so shocking. So I know you'll be sitting up here and it's like, why is she talking about all these nerdy TV shows like Star Trek and stuff? It's me. So you all get a introduction to Ashley today. So I am so excited to preach this today. And yeah, so let's get started. Space, the final frontier. This is how almost every episode of Star Trek's ever-expanding universe begins. Now, I didn't start being a Star Trek fan growing up, and I'm not sure why. It could be a generational thing, considering the new content they were releasing during my formative years wasn't that great. It could be that my family rarely engaged the content as they were more interested in Star Wars, which, if you've seen Obi-Wan Kenobi, the show, come talk to me afterwards. I'm so excited. X-Files and horror movies. But as I moved into adulthood, my disinterest didn't change. I think a lot of the reason was because of one word, and it is frontier. And at this point, we'd go, dun, dun, dun. Right, but I put that da, da, da in there. But the word sounds innocent enough, right? Frontier? But as I started reading for myself as an adult, digging deeper into our culture's colonial history, I kind of started to become sickened by the word, as it often carried a baggage of a land or a people that were in the land that were considered lesser or uncivilized. So yeah, the word sounded pretty gross to me. And the desire to consume a show that praised further exploitation of people under the guise of exploration, I just lost my interest. But again, I didn't really dig into it. And I avoided the show for years until a few weeks ago. I was sitting at home, bored out of my mind. I had no papers, thank gosh, no major deadlines for at least a day or two. And so I was just sitting on the couch, scrolling through the endless supply of TV shows available at our whim, which, by the way, like with all these streaming apps out there, the fact that we still can't find TV shows to watch is just ridiculous. But I thought, I was on Paramount Plus, and I thought, well, screw it. Let's give this new Star Trek series, Strange New Worlds, a try. So I was just planning on turning it on and having it play in the background while I doom scroll endlessly through TikTok videos and looking up cute videos of puppies and all those other things I like to do. But soon I had to put my phone down because I love the show. It was amazing. And I harnessed all my ADHD focus and went into a deep dive, and I mean deep dive, in the Star Trek rabbit hole lore, looking for any information that I can discover about this TV show. Then it finally hit me. What if frontier is supposed to mean something different on this show? I mean, the entire premise of the series, I now know, isn't to explore for the sake of exploitation. It was to learn about new cultures. It was about respecting everybody and anyone, regardless of their race or the color of their skin or where they're from. It was about curiosity, and it was about becoming your best self. Beautiful planets and people didn't join Starfleet and immediately have their landmarks turned into shopping malls. It's almost like they were trying to redefine frontier for us entirely. I wish we can get there as a human race, but we are so far away from a new abstract idea of frontier. If you're not convinced, think about this. If you look like me, you should know that we have, meaning white, we have dark history with frontiers. Our ancestors have done awful things to places we once considered frontier. Our ancestors came over on boats and exploited and killed countless natives, wiping out several cultures in their quest to explore the frontier. They cultivated and exploited these frontiers. We went to other frontiers and stole people groups from their lands, only to bring them here and force them into slavery, all in service of exploring the frontier, developing and conquering. But what if we are to redefine frontier ourselves? Move it from a frontier about land to something else entirely. I know this may sound abstract, but what if we start to think about our frontier as being love? Which I know if you haven't caught on today, that's a theme of today's service is love. Because let's be honest, I don't think we have figured out what that means as a culture. It is still something we need to discover and has been in front of our noses the entire time, yet we are still blinded to it every day. So, if, think back to our first reading today, the reading in John chapter 13, verses 31 through 38. It really is a fantastic reading, and it shows how we have been wrestling with this idea of frontier for millennia, for several millennia, and still haven't quite realized that is the only frontier we should have been chasing the entire time. Now, there's a little context to this story. If we remember, Jesus and his disciples are sitting down enjoying a Passover meal. It's a celebration. And just like any celebration, I'm sure jokes are being said. I'm sure there's some disciple with a boisterous laugh that just always lifts up the room. Another disciple probably in the corner stirring up drama with another disciple. They are a family and they're enjoying themselves because that is what you do as a family at a dining table during an important event like Passover. Think about Christmas celebrations or Thanksgiving dinners. Yes, I bet even the drunk uncle was probably there as well. Now, some people think it was Judas. I think the drunk uncle was Thomas. But, that's just an aside. But about halfway through the meal, Jesus was being a Debbie Downer and foretells that one of his disciples will betray him by the end of the night. This, of course, ruins the mood, and Peter, who always seems to never be able to put a sock in it, just keeps going, looking for more gossip. And jokes on Peter, we learn later that he denies Jesus. But see, I think that is just gossip and not the most important thing in my mind that Jesus wanted to be known, because the entire time Peter's asking questions to Jesus immediately turns away from being the Debbie Downer stuff and moves to what I think is the main point of Jesus' message here. And it starts in verse 33 and it goes, "Little children, I am with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and as I said to the Jews, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also should love one another." I think what is fascinating about Jesus' stories is despite his powers to be able to predict his own death, he still wanted to make sure that his followers knew what was most important. See, as Jesus' death is not an easy one. His death was at the hands of an empire using a system they commonly used to oppress civilians, keep them in line. Jesus' death was simultaneously also the empire keeping local power structures. Think the religious elites of his day, appeased and subservient, because the empire, the Romans, knew that if they can sentence Jesus to this terrible death, they could keep the local power structures and religious elite happy. And if you can keep them happy, you can avoid a uprising. So later we find that he's put on the cross, and despite the awfulness surrounding his death, Jesus stood firm and still made sure that his followers knew to love each other. Somehow he found the frontier of love, not a physical frontier that needed to be conquered, but one that needed to be observed and shared. This frontier was in front of the disciples, offered on a silver platter to them by Jesus. Yet they were oblivious to it anyways. And I think that's why I left the verses 36 and 38 in on the first reading, because despite that part of the story feeling like a move in a different direction, in this move, Peter, being who Peter is again talking and trying to impress Jesus and asking more questions, despite not really knowing what he's talking about. Peter's about to be put in his place by Jesus. And Jesus has a great response to all of Peter's attempts at impressing him. He says, "Will you lay down your life for me? Very truly, I tell you, before the cock crows, you will have denied me 3 times." I've always wondered about this part of the story, why it is so important that the teller of the story add this part about Peter denying Jesus. Right after Jesus just told them that, hey, you need to love one another. Why is this part in? But let me bring you back to the earlier commandment that Jesus gave to them. I give you a new commandment, that you love one another just as I have loved you. You also should love one another. Well, Peter, despite saying that he loved Jesus and he understood and wanted to learn more about what Jesus was talking about, I don't think Peter quite understood love, because Peter would later be revealed as a denier, a self-preservationist. Instead of standing up for Jesus, talking up Jesus when it was needed the most, Peter ran away and denied Jesus. He chose himself and left his love for Jesus behind. He chose to sit quietly instead of boldly and courageously, entering into the frontier of love that Jesus encouraged them to do. And I really hope that we don't become Peters in our own world and in our own communities, because we know that the time is now for us to discover this abstract frontier of love in our own world. Look around, turn on the news, and you can see it right in front of you. Women are having their rights to their own bodies actively stripped away from them, and states are making malice laws in response to abortion rights that would make them worse criminals and rapists. Imagine going through a terrible experience only to have your victimizer treated more fairly than yourself. If you don't believe that love is still a frontier after hearing that, try this. Racism still runs rampant in our country. Black people are still feeling the effects of systematic racism and are still being victimized despite our terrible treatment of them in the past. Then just a few weeks ago, 10 black people were killed in a supermarket in Buffalo, and their killer was called misunderstood by conservative news outlets. If you don't think that love is still a frontier after that, think about this. Another shooting. 19 children were killed in a school just a little over a week ago. And it wasn't our first mass murder of children in schools. We have actually raised an entire generation of kids whose entire experience with schools has been under the real fear of shooting happening at any time. And we still haven't made changes to our laws to make kids safer. Actually, there's this cry to arm the teacher, which is louder than ever, despite them being underpaid and underappreciated in our society. Why? I don't know, but I think part of it is we can't imagine a world without guns or our toys, which are so precious to us. We can't even pass the tiniest bill to make our schools and supermarkets and our minorities' communities safer. Love is still a frontier. Transgender children are being actively targeted, being denied the right to play sports with genders and people who are like them. And I've heard stories and rumors that after these next few gross laws are passed, that they're also going after gay rights, which is Pride Month, and that makes me a little angry. So the question I ask is this: is space the final frontier? Maybe. If we think about frontier in our old way of understanding it, because there isn't much left on this planet to exploit and conquer. We used to live in a beautiful land, but we have exploited and replaced our wonderful natural beauty that used to permeate everywhere with shopping malls and pavement. We have wiped out entire cultures and tried to make them look more like us. And we continue to do awful and terrible things in the name of progress and advancement, to the point that our marginalized are still being exploited today. So yes, under that understanding, maybe space is a final frontier, because there isn't much here left that colonizers can't take over yet. But I think under a new definition of frontier, this attempt to change our frontier mindset, I think the real final frontier is love. We can finally get to the bottom of everything. We can finally realize that the frontier that has been in front of us the entire time, stretching all the way back 2,000 years ago from this ancient story about Jesus and his disciples. It was a frontier then and is still a frontier now. And there are still battles to be fought in people who are suffering. I can't promise that exploring this frontier won't be scary. But any frontier worth exploring is wonderful. Whether it is a physical frontier, a cultural frontier, or in my understanding of the abstract understanding of love. It's all scary. Look at Peter. Peter got scared and denied Jesus 3 times, one of his closest friends. And when presented opportunities to embrace the frontier of love and defend his teacher, Peter again chose self-preservation and denied ever knowing who Jesus is. But amazing things cannot happen until we embrace who we are and take those first steps into the amazing adventure of love that is standing before us. So the question I ask you today is, what is that first step you need to take to begin your journey on this frontier of love? Maybe it's reaching out to that person who you wronged, or maybe who has wronged you, and making amends. I know that's scary. I've had to do it recently as well. It's scary. It's a frontier, but in order to realize love, I needed to take that step. Maybe you're somebody who is supportive and caring naturally, but have been holding off and sending loving support to somebody who might really need it. I know after years of, being stuck behind their computers on Facebook, it's kind of hard to reach out to people these days. But maybe you're somebody that needs to take that first step on the frontier of love and reach out and be that caring, supportive hand. Embrace that frontier of love. Or maybe one of the social issues I mentioned earlier is itching at you, and you feel like you can no longer sit on your couch like I was, watching mindless television shows for hours, and you want to find a way to get involved or start something right here in Denison. Whatever it is, let me offer my support and love. And whatever is the case, let me leave you with this word. I am not convinced that space is our final frontier. I don't think it ever was. We can just explore the galaxy, discover all kinds of new races and peoples, but if we haven't found love, we are still failing ourselves. No, the final frontier isn't space. The final frontier is love. So I ask you, what is your first step on this adventure of love? All right. So at this time, if you have any gifts that you would like to bring to the table, feel free so. Our offerings are a sacrament of our free church. It is supported by the voluntary generosity of all who join with us. The offering is given and received in grateful appreciation of our shared hopes and values.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Let me leave you with this parting thought. Empathy isn't just something that happens to us, a meteor shower of synapses firing across the brain. It is also a choice we make to pay attention, to extend ourselves. It is made of exertion, the dirtier cousin of impulse. Sometimes we care for one another because we know we should, or because it is asked for. But this doesn't make our caring hollow. The act of choosing simply means we've committed ourselves to a set of behaviors greater than the sum of our individual inclinations. This confession of effort chafes at the notion that empathy should always rise unbidden, that genuine means the same thing as unwilled, that intentionality is the enemy of love. But I believe in intention, and I believe in work. I believe in waking up in the middle of the night and packing our bags and leaving our worst selves for our better ones. Now, if you receive this blessing, go in peace. Seeking Justice by Jim McGraw. When I say go in peace, I don't mean go in mindless oblivion. When I say go in peace, I don't mean go without challenging yourself or others. And when I say go in peace, I don't mean go in utter ease and comfort. When I say go in peace, I mean go in peace seeking justice. I mean go in peace committed to the equal rights and opportunities for all. When I say go in peace, I mean go in peace that is created when together we build communities of true solidarity and deep compassion and fierce, unrelenting love. Go in peace. And if you would stand for the extinguishing of the chalice with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you all.